Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. With us moving on to an exciting brand new DC universe, I really want to talk about Zack Snyder because lots of people keep on saying to me, Mick, I'm just so glad we're moving on from Zack Snyder. Well, I don't celebrate it. I understand the reasons why people are happy, and I think it has to be done in terms of the business, in terms of making, DC successful. I understand all of that, but I don't celebrate moving on from Zack Snyder because Zack Snyder gave me 3 outstanding, epic DC movies. And there is no question about that. They are outstanding. They are epic. And, I still love them today. Yeah, I can pick them to pieces. I can say maybe he shouldn't have done that. Maybe that was a bad decision. But ultimately, you can pick any work of art to pieces because all art is made by human beings and all human beings are flawed, right? Which means all their art is going to be flawed. And that's okay. So, I think it's very, very sad what happened to Zack Snyder, and I don't celebrate it. And I know some people absolutely despise the man as an artist, a director, and as a person. Now, I don't understand where this hatred comes from. I really don't. I mean, you can say you don't like what he does, and that's okay, by the way. That's totally fine. But some of the conversations that surround Snyder amaze me, and I'm not necessarily sure that he hates all this negativity. I think he kind of welcomes it. I think he said he welcomes people, not liking his stuff and, people being as negative about it as they are positive. He seems to enjoy that element of it. But I think when you're Zack Snyder and when you work the way you do and make the kind of things that you do, there's always a chance that you start something and you don't get to finish it. And this is exactly what happened with DC, wasn't it? I mean, listen, the story of the DCEU, which is now going to be the DCU, if that's going to be entirely the same universe, I have no idea. But the story of the DCEU is as interesting behind the scenes and what happened with the corporate situation and the director situation as it was within the movies. I mean, the saga of him being fired and, them making Justice League and then all us fans were fighting to release the Snyder Cut. We were hashtagging that. There were events. And I mean, there's fan groups now trying to copy and pattern the tactics that Snyder fans tried to release the Snyder Cut. And ultimately, it was extremely successful. So historically, I think when we get older, these are going to be stories we tell the kids, isn't it? I fought to help release the Snyder Cut. And we were successful. And as I say, the story about the director is as interesting as the movies and the franchise itself. And it's one of those historical moments in the entertainment industry where we can say, us the fans, were a huge part of it. We saw so many twists and turns in terms of fighting for the Snyder Cut, for example. And I'm just glad I was there to experience it, because if someone told me after these things happened, I wouldn't have believed them, especially when we actually got the Snyder Cut and we were getting the marketing and then Snyder and Fisher were exposing the studio. Then the studio were, fighting back by releasing an element of the movie over Tom and Jerry, for example, before it was even supposed to be released. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I mean, I've been around in the industry for a very long time. I did a few months in Hollywood. I've mixed with industry people and all of that. And I know they can be below the belt. And when they, the fighting is very below the belt, and you better watch your back, bro. But I've never seen anything on this level where people were blatantly in the industry hating Snyder, and Snyder was blatantly pretty much hating some people of Warner Brothers Pictures. I, as a fan, for example, shouldn't have known that Toby Emmerich didn't like Zack Snyder, that Ann Sarnoff didn't like Zack Snyder, And I shouldn't have known that John Stankey of AT&T was the one who greenlit the Snyder Cut. I should know that John Stankey was the one who went to David Zaslav and initiated this merger so someone could go in that studio and sort it the fuck out like Zaslav is doing now. And so, as I say, we knew the DCEU was a weird franchise because we knew exactly what was going on, and it's a strange thing for a bunch of industry people not to be embarrassed that we know kind of their bankruptcy, not just creatively, but in terms of the corporate business in it, the corporate side of Warner Brothers as well was so badly run, and it's not surprising now that they're having so many financial difficulties now that they've got a competent leader there. And hopefully Zaslav will keep on making great decisions as he is, and he'll sort this studio out and we can now sort DC out. But I think, when I do my live videos, people always say, I'm so glad, as I said earlier, so glad we're moving on from Snyder. I don't think it's a thing to celebrate. I understand why it's vital it happens, even though I love his movies and love him and respect him. But I don't celebrate that. Look, for me, there's nothing to celebrate. I know you can be lost in some of his fans because some of his fans are very, very triggering. And they talk shit on the internet. And they trigger me as well. And we call them the cultists. I mean, most Snyder fans are lovely, beautiful people who just want to celebrate their favourite director's films. I mean, even for a little while, if we just talk about his fans and him actually having this fandom. I said it on my live the other day. There's some directors, iconic directors who are not even alive anymore, that don't have the fandom that he does. Now, even though I admire his work and I think his work is sensational, especially his 3 DC movies, I am miffed why he's got such a passionate following, and I don't think anyone kind of understands the following itself. But I do believe it's not bots. I believe it's actual genuine people who love the man. He's a very genuine man and they love his work. And when so many people love someone, it says something about them. Unfortunately, some of them can cross the line, as they did the other day when James Gunn was, marking the death of Kevin Conroy, and someone came in swearing at him and saying, release the Snyder Cut, and obviously that guy was embarrassed because James Gunn's got probably over 1 million followers. And then what happens is if a famous person kind of, responds to your take, then you're going to get shit for the next 6 months. It's the way it works. And I always feel bad for people when that happens to them, but you've got to understand, because if you're a DC fan, you should understand how important and iconic Kevin was. And I think you can, if you're hashtagging release the Snyder Cut in all the comments, or should I say restore the Snyderverse, then I think when it's about a DC icon's death, you should leave it out. I mean, some Snyder fans get upset that some people call them, like they're not real DC fans. But when you do something like that, when an icon like Kevin's died, it does pose the question, would a real DC fan ever do that? And I'm asking you. I don't think they would. I wouldn't do that. I was devastated to hear of Kevin's death. I was watching some animated classics that he put his brilliant voice work to as Batman. And, he's an icon. His death is just as iconic as Christopher Reeve's death, or, anyone else who's been heavily involved with DC Comics or DC live action. So there's a time and a place for everyone. And I do think that some of Zack's fans do show him up. But there's one thing. They are not going anywhere. It's clear that, Gunn and Safran are not going to restore the Snyderverse. And that's not the intention. The intention is to move on, everyone. And I respect that, but I don't celebrate that, because I think his other 2 Justice League movies would have been brilliant. I think Ben Affleck's The Batman would have been sensational. And I think they were going to give Snyder, a Justice League Series 2 on HBO Max and a Justice League Series 3. But unfortunately, once he started, shitting on, the studio and telling, fans what was going on, they didn't like it. And in the end, he lost his dream. I think Zack wanted his cake and eat it because Zack was treated disgustingly. And, I can understand why he wanted revenge, but ultimately it cost him. And it cost him big time. But Zack Snyder isn't unemployed and he's not working at McDonald's. Right now he's working on the movies of his life. These are passion projects. This Rebel Moon story was a pitch for Star Wars, and they rejected it. And now he gets to do his own space opera that could actually expose Disney Star Wars in many ways. So yeah, I will always re-watch Snyder's DC trilogy and remember it, but I'll never celebrate him not being allowed to finish his arc. This has been Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you tonight when I'm live. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.